while of course it's going to be very difficult to prove this without a commission of inquiry that people like you are suggesting, when we look at the trajectory of events as they've unfolded and some of the explanations that have been proffered, you will begin to suspect, as I do, that there's something really fishy going on here. So let me just focus on two misconceptions that I think has been carefully engineered into the public's mindset in order to reduce anxiety about what has happened. And this is a very serious problem. The first is the position around how much of the Achomota Forest has actually been declassified, because that is an important point. The suggestion has been that it was just a small part of the land. They've used the term peripheral.
Over 40%.
In that, well, it's more. So here it's very interesting, and I'll come to that shortly.
Whoa.
But let's start off with some of the major forest belts or green belts, natural reserves that are close to Accra. And let's look at something very interesting. So this one is the Guaku area in Pokuase, near Pokuase. And you see that from 1990 to present, the degree to which the built-up of that natural environment has proceeded is very substantial.
Yeah.
Maybe nearly 50% of what is supposed to be a reserve has been built up.
Yeah.
And I'm making this because I'm building up to a point. So 1990, you can see that most of the land is green. This uses various geospatial techniques and a composite fashion to describe it. And by the time we get to 2015, a good chunk of that land has been built up. The built up is the reddish, brownish that you see.
Right.
This is Shire Hills. While this is an important caveat, because what has happened in Shire Hills is not largely building up or encroachment, as we like to call it, but primarily natural factors and poor management of the reserve. So you see that a lot of the land in the Shire Hills area has become herb and grass, but not necessarily built up. Built up is the reddish, the brownish is the herb and grass,
okay,
and then we have some substantial amounts remaining. So this is an example of a situation where it's not politicians damaging the land, and so you see the effect is very different. It's not built up necessarily because Shire is still very much quite a distance away from Accra compared to Pokuase and the one that we are interested in, Achomota. So that's building up a point as to how different forest reserve, depending on how close they are to prime land, tends to get targeted. And then you get to Achomota. And the fascinating thing about Achomota's situation is that, contrary to the arguments that tend to be made, which is that, oh, you don't have to worry about these Achomota anymore because the forest is already gone. Most of it has already been taken by encroachers. So what are we even talking about? Actually, Achomota has been doing very well, at least until 2015. You can see that the built-up area of the parts of Achomota that has been classified as a forest as far back as 1930, that part of it, we haven't seen that significant degree of build-up as we've seen in, say, Kwagu in Pokuase. So that's an important point. In fact, only about 27% of the forest area has been built up in the almost 100 years of its existence. And that builds up, or rather lays the foundation for the critical argument. If for almost 100 years, we've managed, despite all our challenges, to keep something in the degree of about 73% of the forest relatively unscathed, then it's quite surprising that declassification has now put us at the greatest peril, or at least put the forest at its greatest peril since it was created. So let's look at the executive instrument very carefully, because I think most people have misread it. The way that the forest, the E154 is crafted, is that it starts off by giving you a history, a rough idea of what the size of the forest was in 1927, 1930, when the order was made. And then it suggests that because the former president intends to make a part of it as an ecotourism park, and a part of it is to be given back to the Owu family. For that reason, we need to now leave a segment as the forest reserve. But it's a very interesting point. So what he's suggesting is that the eco reserve part shouldn't be a forest reserve. And what is being given to the Owu family shouldn't be a forest reserve either. What that leaves you is with a schedule. So he says the remaining portion of the land in the schedule should remain as a forest reserve. So it is the schedule that you need to look at carefully to understand which proportion of the original is actually still a forest reserve. And I think many people have missed it. I've automatically assumed that only the land being given to the Wu family is the land that is being declassified. That's not correct. So you look at the next page of the instrument, and you see clearly that it's the land specified to the schedule that is going to remain the forest reserve. So what is that land? It says clearly that that land specified in the schedule is 372.75 acres. And you now go back to the original area as recognized by the instrument itself, and you do a subtraction to see which part has actually been declassified. And when you do that math, it's a very simple arithmetic. It's really simple arithmetic. 70% of the forest is gone. But all the analysis people are getting confused.
I've been following the calculation that's estimating that a little over 40% is gone.
No, it's not correct.
70%
with you systematically, step by step. Read EI 154 very carefully. It states certain actions are going to be performed in the area previously designated the forest reserve. However, the remaining part of it will be the remainder will be a forest reserve. And then in doing so, it tells you go to the schedule to find out the real area that will remain as the forest reserve. When you do that math, it's 70% is gone. The majority of the forest